Join us today on Beyond the Lair, where we have a conversation with the great Bobbie Racette. We're going to talk about her childhood, growing up an introvert, and creating a job for herself that has led to the creation of the largest virtual assistant platforms on the planet. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Lair. My name is Gina Jackson Montgomery. I am one of the co-hosts for today. I'd like to introduce my co-host.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dean Montgomery. Nice to be here again, Gina.
We are thrilled today. We have an amazing guest. The great Bobbie Racette is with us today, who is a personal friend, but also a icon in the tech business. If you haven't heard of Bobbie Racette, you are hiding under a rock for the last year and a half, 2 years. Bobbie Racette, I'll tell you a little bit about her, is a trailblazing Métis tech entrepreneur. She epitomizes innovation and social change as the founder and CEO of Virtual Gurus. Her visionary approach has redefined the remote work sector, advocating for inclusivity and equitable opportunities for historically marginalized communities. Under her leadership, Virtual Gurus has become one of North America's premier talent platforms. Bobbie's numerous achievements include being named Indigenous Entrepreneur of the Year in 2022, EY Winning Women 2022, and receiving her Distinguished Entrepreneur of the Year award from the University of Victoria's Gustavson School of Business in 2023. There are many more. Her commitment to social equity and community extends beyond her business, as evidenced by her role as the inaugural chair of the board of Indigenous Prosperity Foundation and as Telus Friendly Futures Foundation board member. Through her initiatives, Bobbie not only opens doors for diverse talent, but also instills a belief that no is not an answer, paving the way for groundbreaking success stories. Welcome to the show, Bobbie.
Wow. I get chills hearing that.
That's quite the intro. That's amazing. Hi, Gina. Hi, Dean.
Hello.
Hey, Bobbie.
We are so excited to have you on our program today. Bobbie, you and I met at the forum about a year and a half ago that was held in Vancouver, which is a female entrepreneur contest where it's called Pitch the Purse. And I remember the buzz of when we met Bobbie Racette, because you blew up everywhere. And I can't wait for the audience to hear the story. But you came up to me and said, congratulations on the Bears Lair TV show. I need to be on your show. How do I get on your show? And the very next day you text and said, how can I be on your show? And sure enough, you are on season 2. Because there is no for you. There is a no for you. And we're so pleased and honored. And this is going to lead to a very, very deep and lifelong friendship. So thank you so much for being on the show. But before we start, I just wanted to tell our audience, if we can hear about you, you growing up. We know all about your accolades, but we'd love to have a conversation about your story.
Yeah, Gina, that was awesome. I actually was at the forum, and I remember I was sitting very close to the front because I was one of the pitch judges for the pitches that were happening. And I happened to have been on the stage with one of my investors at the time, which was really neat. So that was awesome. And then I remember hearing that you were there, and I was like, where? And I came running back to make sure I found you. I think it was during intermission time or something. And I was like, I got to tell her I need to be on her show. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm on this season on episode 8, which is amazing. Super stoked for it. So Bobbie Racette, I was born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan. My mom is from the Fort Capella area, and my dad is from Indian Head, Saskatchewan. And I was raised there my entire life up until I was 18 with my 2 moms. So they've been together for 45 years now, and I'm 46. So they've had quite the fun life. My mom was the first female woman carpenter of Saskatchewan. And my other mom has worked at the same job for the entire time I've known her, which is at Canadian Blood Services. But was raised up there and then going back and forth between Regina and Indian Head my entire life. And as I got a little bit older, I started realizing I had a skin disease. And so I realized that I actually had polymorphous light eruption, which is AKA vampire. So I actually technically was not allowed to touch any daylight for many years of my life. I was in the hospital for about 8 years straight, almost. I have third-degree burns all over my entire body still, hence the tattoos. I would bubble up whenever I touched daylight. I was like, I would third degree burns. It was so weird. My eyes, I couldn't open, my mouth, I couldn't smile. And so then I didn't go to school until really high school-ish, when I started growing out of it a little bit more, figured out what was wrong. But then I got bullied a lot because I had sores all over my face and my entire body. And so I became like a hardcore introvert. And so when I turned 18, I was thinking, I got to travel. I got to get out of Regina. So I took off and I hitchhiked across Canada, the US, Mexico, Europe. I lived in Europe. I did all this stuff and just traveled because I just couldn't live there anymore. And it wasn't for me. And I needed to find myself. And so then that brings me here. I moved to Calgary 11 years ago.
Amazing. During that time when you were traveling, did you find it different? Did you feel more included, or were you more extroverted after that, or did that help?
No, I was always hardcore introvert. In fact, when I started Virtual Gurus, I was really afraid. And so was some of my investors and people that I was working with were afraid that I wasn't going to be able to do this. But I'm a firm believer that in order to be comfortable, you have to be uncomfortable and you have to be able to work beyond that. And so, it's taken me 6 years to be able to do this, to be able to talk, to be able to be with people, to do all the media stuff that I'm doing, to speak on stage, to keynote. Those things were, 5 years ago, I would never have done.
How did you get the courage to be from Dina and I teach kids camps all over Canada. We teach Indigenous youth, as you know, 11 to 18 all over Canada. And public speaking is one of the most feared tasks that anyone that can do. And what we do is we teach the kids really slowly and thread it into our curriculum to be comfortable with public speaking. How did you go? How did you shift from being an introvert to being the international keynote panelist speaker that you are right now?
Well, there was a few stages of it, but, I'll tell you where one of my pivotal moments happened. But I just started Virtual Gurus. Nobody would listen to me. Nobody would invest in me. We could talk a little bit more about that. But I essentially went through 170 investors that said no to me because of who I am, because I'm tattooed, queer, Indigenous. And I knew I needed to get into something. So I went into an accelerator. It was actually Arlene Dickinson's accelerator. And on my demo day, which every tech company has to do, you do a demo day, you're up there pitching what you've created, and investors can choose to invest in you. I looked out of the curtain, essentially I looked into the crowd and shut the curtain, and I could just feel this sense of something that I didn't like. It just wasn't right. It was... I'll remember that feeling forever. I felt icky. I felt yucky. My hands were sweaty. I couldn't. I was sick to my stomach. And something told me not to do it. And I turned around. I got my backpack. I walked up the building, hailed down a cab, and I left. And so when my turn came on, they were like, Bobbie Racette. And people were like, she left. And I couldn't do it because of my nerves. They got too much ahead of me. Like, I just couldn't do it. And I ended up, I wouldn't say being the laughing stock of the tech community for a bit. I would say that I was certainly the one of, she's not going to be able to do this. And people were looking at me. And I was so ready to throw the towel in on Virtual Gurus and just say, I can't do this. This is beyond me. I just can't. And so then something woke up in me, and I ended up flying out to San Francisco, and I had to go and do a pitch on stage in front of 8,000 tech founders and investors. I got up there and I just said, I don't want that again. I want to be different. I want to show I can do this. I want to show this. Confidence is on me. So I went to the bathroom. I did the Superman pose. I was like, I can do this. And I ran on stage and I did it, and I got a standing ovation, and I ended up winning. And so it was that moment that was my reason of saying, hey, look, if I can't do this and I don't show that I'm going to do it, then how do I expect other people, other young Indigenous women like me to do it? And so that empowered me to keep going. And then I was able to close the funding round, the first funding round, and I was able to continue on.
Incredible. Wow. So can you tell us a little bit then about, that's an unbelievable story. Can you tell us a little bit more about just how did you come up with the idea of Virtual Gurus? Why did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so I worked in oil and gas out here in Alberta. I worked my way up to a high angle safety foreman. So I was the one that was people were going into the vessels in the oil and gas and fixing the vessels where the oil and gas came out of. We call them shutdowns. And then my job is to go and save them should they've gotten hurt or anything, rappel down and, give them CPR and get them in an air ambulance or something. So I did that and worked my way up to foreman. And then the layoffs, the recession and the oil drop came and everybody got laid off. So luckily for me, because I was such a hard worker, I was one of the last to get laid off. However, worse for me was all of the jobs were taken up before me. And being in Alberta, who I am as an Indigenous queer woman with tattoos, it was really difficult for me to get a job in administration, which is my background. And so I started applying. Nobody would give me work. And I ended up within 10 months. And then finally nobody. And this was only 6-7 years ago.
Yeah. What year was that, Bobbie?
It's in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And so nobody would hire me. Nobody. So I started working at a coffee shop, and then I started seeing like gig economy and all that fun stuff. And anyway, I created Virtual Gurus to create a job for myself. I started getting my first clients by going to Kijiji and Craigslist, and then I just started building. I just threw up a splash page, figured out online how to do it, ran the entire thing on Excel. I was the salesperson, I was the CTO, I was the CEO, and I was the virtual assistant. So about 1.5 to 2 years later, I hired my first VA. My first year revenue was about 265,000. My second revenue was like 750,000. My third was like 1.8 million. And so it just kept climbing. And then that's when I finally was up the third year that I was like, I think I have something big. I could turn this into a platform to provide work to people like me who have always been told no their entire lives. And so that's where it came from.
Incredible.
I love that. For our audience that doesn't know what Virtual Gurus is, can you please tell us and tell the audience what it is and what kind of services provides? Because I think this is going to be of interest to not only entrepreneurs that do really well on what they do it, but they need a who to do it for them. And it's just a great business model, and for businesses that are growing and scaling up that can hire these services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Virtual Gurus is what we call a two-sided talent marketplace. So we provide work to underserved and marginalized communities through the platform by using artificial intelligence to match them with businesses and entrepreneurs. So think about if you need a virtual assistant, administrative assistant, marketing assistant, anything, bookkeeping, legal, financial, IT, and you need somebody to just work for you, but you don't necessarily need them full time. So you can come into the platform and you can essentially select who you want to work with. The AI kind of helps with that. And then we utilize them to move them into other accounts. So essentially you're sharing that person because you don't need them full time. And so you can hire somebody, it's a monthly subscription model. And that person works for you through the tech platform that we've created now. We've raised over about 11 million in total, and we put it all into building this platform. And then we match you with everybody through the platform. So you can build a full remote team. Now, what makes us different is everybody here is in Canada or the US that are in the platform, and all of them are from some sort of a marginalized community. So I think 90% of our talent identifies as Black, Indigenous people of color. About 40% are part of the LGBTQ community. I think there's about 300 Indigenous in there now working. We have single stay-at-home moms, veterans, people with disabilities, everybody that's essentially struggled. And so they're all in there and they all have a story and they're working day in and day out. We're billing somewhere around 28,000 hours a week right now in billable hours.
Wow. And what is the payroll that you have, if you don't mind us? Like how much that's really that adds to the economy in incredible ways. Yeah. Do you know what that would be roughly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're spending, and like, it depends, because what happens is we pay, so we broker the relationship and then we pay out their salary to what they get. It's not really salary because they're contractors, but they get every 2 weeks, they get a pay. Now they get billed by the minute based on what they bill. So if they want to work almost full time, so let's say 140 to 160 hours a month, that's up to them. They have to succeed. They have to do good. They get their star ratings, just like regular, gig economy workers. and they have to stand out. And so then they get matched. And so some people might come in and say, look, I can only work when my child is sleeping Monday to Friday between this time. Where some will come and say, I can't find a job. There's no work for me. Pay me full time, load me up. And so we load them up, but they only get paid for the time worked. Right. And so that's what makes it a little bit of a different model. But on average right now with the VAs, like we have about 800 to 1100 in there at Toggles, who are billing over 100 hours a month. So it's quite a lot. Revenue wise, like I'd say we're the highest revenue virtual assistant agency in North America, and most likely even in the world right now.
So millions, we can safely say millions are going back into marginalized communities monthly.
Monthly, millions. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think to go further, and when we first started the Bears Lair, I heard about you and I heard about virtual gurus, and this was much before we met in person, and actually had a meeting with one of your people, your salespeople, about what the needs for our business was. And for the audience, you can get an executive assistant that can help you with appointments or bookings. You can get somebody that is a graphic designer or somebody that is an expert in marketing. If you have presentations that you need or PowerPoints that you need, things like that, then there's specialists that can do that. So it's such a great solution, because as our team grows, every entrepreneur has a slow season and a busy season, and same with industry as well. And then to have to go through HR, to sign up for payroll, to do deductions, to have a 90-day probation period per se, it's very arduous, especially when you're a small company or middle level company, to try to do that and have training for specifics. Can you tell our audience, in respect, because I know that entrepreneurs have a lot of confidentiality with their business, with their calendars, et cetera, how that works in respect of confidentiality and NDAs and things like that, because that might be a concern.
Absolutely. So we've taken all the measures to make sure that's good. So a couple things. One is that we're becoming SOC 2 certified, which is huge in the tech world for one, but in essentially security purposes. So all of our secure our platform is fully secured with AWS in Canada. So it's on our own native land, which is important to us. Secondly is all of our VAs are insured under us. So we've taken out a big insurance. So every virtual assistant is insured for up to 2 million. So if something happens, and it's never happened, but let's say your credit card, all of a sudden you got these charges. Insurance takes care of all of that. If something happens where they damage something of your property, insurance will help with that. But that's never happened because they work remotely. For two, we have we have full NDAs signed with them, contracts where they are back checked in that sense. And then the last thing is that we don't offshore whatsoever. So if you go to a lot of our competitors, you'll see that they're offshoring. They might, sometimes you might call the company and then you get somebody in Bangladesh or Philippines. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying if that suits your model, then go for it. But for us, that's not what we want. We wanted to bring that own economy back and say, look, we're going to provide work from home opportunities to people in our own land and stop taking away just to make extra dollars on the hour. So we're more of a people over profit company. So we take a lower profit margin so that we can pay them higher.
I love that. And you can be choosy with your person. You have a whole stack of people that can choose from. So if I'm looking for an Indigenous female between the ages of 20 and 30 that's very good at social media, then I can be matched with somebody like that.
Absolutely. And you can be matched. You can build, kind of essentially drag and drop. You can interview a few and you can say, okay, look, I'll interview 3. We might match you with somebody and say, look, this person that might not be Indigenous, but they're part of the Black Indigenous people of color community, interview them, see what you feel. And you can really see how you feel. And if you want, you can test them all out and then try it. The plus side is if you decide not to work with one of them, they're not just thrown to the curb and you don't have to worry about them. We take care of them. We give them other work. They're not just thrown to the curb. And that's the one thing that we don't want to do, and I felt that all too much when I'm out looking for work. How many times when my resume hit the bottom of a trash can, like Let's be real. That's, how many times have these people had that? So for us, we skill them up and source them out. Essentially, that's our thing, is how do we skill them up? And that's our huge number one. So now we're going on to Indigenous communities. So we're getting into Tsutsina here first, and then we're working with a whole bunch of others. We're going to put some aqua trailers on the communities, and we're going to teach them to come in and teach them how to be virtual assistants and stay in their own community. And I'm really excited for the initiative, because then we could skill them up, and then they could become virtual assistants, and then they can just stay in their community, which is amazing.
It's just incredible. And how does the AI work, Bobbie? With like, what tasks is the AI doing?
So there's a few things that we're doing AI. One is what we're calling more of a logistical AI. So we're taking the AI, and let's say, Dean, you need to use the service, and you might use it 20, 25 hours in 1 month because you have a busy month. But the next month, based on your behavior, you might actually only need it for 10 hours. Then we can essentially utilize that and say, okay, great. Then we can go and try to find that person another job to make up the hours they need, because then you shouldn't be billed for that, but we could go and get it to somebody else. So we're building that out. That's working nicely. We're going further into it. Secondly, the AI right now is on the sales call. Anytime you talk to one of the sales member, it's automatically pulling up the AI of who you're going to be matched with and what you need. Just from the conversation, it's going to say they're going to need a bookkeeping assistant, a marketing, social media manager. They're going to need this, this, and this. And then the salesperson can say, okay, here's what you need. It gets passed through the platform to the client success department, who then you get handed off to. And so that's really helping. One of the number one things that's important to me about AI is we're leveraging it to create jobs, not take away jobs. And that's ethical AI. So it's really important to me. Great.
And then what would someone expect? I mean, I'm sure different services are different prices and different costs. And so what is someone looking to get at? Like, what are the prices? Is it set when you're speaking to the salesperson, or how does that work?
Yeah, it depends on the service now. I mean, our typical package goes for, it's around our 10 hours, I believe. We just increased the prices. I don't even know anymore, because I'm so just so busy speaking, and my team is running the entire thing. All I do is pull up the data. Like, all the numbers are on my other screen right here, and I just watch it come in. It's pretty nice. But I think we're around 380 for a 10-hour package. So it's around the 38 on the hour, but that's the highest rate. Mm-hmm. It actually goes lower the higher you go. So we want you to go on 30, 40, 50 hours, because let's be real, like 10 hours a month, what VA is going to be able to live off of that, right? So we try to really build that package for you to get you in there using it. And then we have consultants and client success managers who teach you how to use it, how to delegate, how to send that off, how to, you'll notice your return on investment will come twofold, because these people do your management, your travel, like all of my stuff is handled by them. So I have all my travel, and I travel a lot, my media, my all my stuff, my social media, my everything, is done by them. And so it's pretty neat, because you can just like, and then everything just gets done. But some people will use bigger packages. Like, we have large clients who hire like numerous VAs, like 30, 40, 50, 60 VAs through our platform at once. And there's a lot of big ones, like we have MasterCard, Bank of Montreal, Telus, like a bunch.
No, I think it's great. It's such a great solution, because all we hear in industry, and we go to a lot of networking events, the same networking events. We're going to be going to Collision next week, what I'm pretty excited about. But we always hear that there's no capacity, and that they're finding a really, really hard time finding people. And I'm talking about like the techs and the bank, the financial institutions, et cetera. And this is a really great resource for those HR departments to stop being frustrated with going directly to nations or directly to marginalized communities and saying that there's nobody that's answering their ads or what have you, and then just going straight to the source that's actually providing a social impact for community straight from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. I can think of communities that we work with that we help support through economic development and funding. And a lot of the time, the first thing we do is try to find the people. And in a lot of these remote communities, they're just not available, or people don't want to go there. So what a great service.
And for our listeners as well, so we know about hiring virtual gurus. But what about if you want to become a virtual guru, if you're a person with administration or graphic design or marketing or executive assistant, or how do people get involved as an employee or a contractor?
Yeah. So right now, the best way would, when you go to the website, we have become a virtual assistant. It's become a VA, hire a VA. You can actually go and click there. Now, one of the number one things that's super important is we ask you to self-identify, because self-identification is key. We know it's caused a lot of generational trauma in the past as well. And a lot of people don't self-identify because they fear that it's not going to get them a job, right? So when you come in and it says, do you identify as Indigenous, Black, Indigenous people of color, and then it digs a little bit deeper. We strongly suggest filling that out, because for us right now is really figuring out that data of where the work is needed and taking that data, and that data actually plugs back into our AI so that we can really figure out where we can get further into the communities. So it's just self-identify and come through. And then at that point, you'll go into a waiting list. And then at that point, there's a bunch of testing things you'll answer. It actually goes through, if the AI picks out that you're marketing assistant, you'll actually have to go through and fill out a marketing assistant testing. And that's more or less so we can see where your skill level is at, because that's important too, because we do have a lot of clients and we want to make sure we're figuring out where you're at, how much training we're going to need to do. And then, you come through, and then once you're through, you get access into our hub. It's insane in there. I mean, as a founder, I sometimes go into the hub and I can't even believe the action. Like it's a 4 VA by VA platform hub that we've created. And all of the virtual assistants are in there talking with each other. We have neurodiverse VAs, LGBTQ VAs. We have an Indigenous VA group in there. We have all of these, and you get access to it all, training, free courses. We have Perkopolis as a partner, so you get tens of thousands of perks just for being a VA in there. And we have all this fun stuff in there happening. Weekly lunch and learns to panels with entrepreneurs, to panels with VAs. And it's super cool to see. And I've never even knew that. Like, I mean, I knew I created it, but I didn't even know it was going to be that. So, and then you get access to that, and then you get an hourly rate. Depending on your experience, it could be anywhere from 18 to 24 an hour right now. We're looking to increase that.
Wow. So what's the size of the management team now? Started with one. Where are you now?
Yeah, I started with one. We were just at 65 employees full-time in our operations center. But right now we're actually down to 38 because the technology is working. And so now it's mostly customer service, marketing, sales, and finance, and tech. Obviously, people doing the coding all day long. And so we have a 20,000 square foot office downtown Calgary. And we just have a lot of fun, but we are hybrid. So we go there for more fun, where I'm rarely there now because I travel so much.
What is the youngest that somebody can apply to be a VA, and what is your oldest employee? Like what's kind of your target market for employees or contractors?
It's everything. We have a lot of maybe potentially landed immigrants. We have students who are just trying to make ends meet because maybe they're struggling and they live on their own. Maybe they're supporting themselves. But we also have another app called VG On Demand. So think about Uber. Turn your meter on when you want to work. Turn it off when you don't want to work. So you can go in there right now, and anybody could just go VG On Demand Virtual Gurus. It'll pull up, and you could just send a task, and they just pull it. And these are typically students or single moms who can't work like set hours because maybe they're working in between classes. And so then they can actually just grab a task, and they get paid in 15-minute increments. So it's just grab. And so right now, I think our youngest is probably 18, 19. I don't know. I'd have to look through the data because I have no touch points with them anymore. I have the whole platform that I've created, and I just look in it and see what's happening. But I do know one of our oldest is roughly around 70, semi-retired, and has been with us for a few years. Was doing Uber driving part-time, and then decided to sign up, and is now doing this. And her husband passed away not too long ago. And yeah. And I mean, that's what it's for. It's for everybody. And for people like her, I don't think it's necessarily about the money. It's more about being a part of a community. Community is important.
I love that, because after you retire and you lose your loved one or your spouse or what have you, it gives some meaning to be able to pick up and have the flexibility to have that in respect, especially with your chat room and your groups. That's amazing. So now that you're traveling, you're not spending so much time in your business, you're spending time on your business. What else are you doing?
A lot. I think this week I've done 4 podcasts. Excuse me. And just traveling and interview. Actually, I'm on a panel with you at Collision.
You are.
And I'm
very excited about that.
Pretty pumped about that. I do sit on a couple boards now. So I'm the inaugural chairwoman for the Indigenous Prosperity Foundation. So what we're doing is we raise money and we're bringing money into communities to teach the new generation of business founders in our communities. So youth, women, and we're trying to give them the resources and tools to become founders and to build businesses. So I started that about 5 months ago. I also sit on the board of the Telus Future Friendly, where we raise money to get back into youth charity organizations. So I kind of overlook and see the, sorry, my dog. I overlook the Indigenous side essentially. So I really help with making sure that we're bringing in the right Indigenous charities. So I do that. I work also for Natives Rising out of the US, who is actually ran by Betsy Ford, the first Indigenous woman in the US to close the Series A. And I'm the first Indigenous woman in Canada, and we're like sisters now, had good dinners and we hang out. And so I'm a mentor through her. So I'm mentoring 2 First Nations businesses out of the US for her right now. And that's amazing. I'm loving that. So we're helping them scale. And they're doing really good. And then, I'm just enjoying life and working and traveling and speaking and being the face of, while my COO and my team are growing it. It's just so good. Like I could be out speaking, growing that traction, and they're running all the behind the scenes. Really, they're the ones doing the hard work. I don't give them enough credit.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a Series A raises, and because it's a big feat, so maybe explain that to some of our listeners that might not know.
Yeah. So when you're in tech, or I guess but mostly in tech, you need to obviously raise money because you have to build the tech where all your resources from your financials that you're making from them then goes right back into the business, but you have to raise money. And so I closed my seed round of 1.25 million in 2020. It took me 2 years to close that, 170 investors saying no. And all I could close was 1.25 million, but hey, it helps. Less than a year later, I started raising my Series A, and then I was able to close 8.4 million, which is good. A little bit small for a Series A, but really good for a Series A at our size. And so the Series A money was able to go into really helping to full build the tech to get us to scale. And to get us to high growth, which we call, like I said, hyper growth scale in the tech community. And then now I'm actually right in the middle of doing my Series B right now. So I'll be the first Indigenous woman in Canada as well to close and raise the Series B. Series B is a lot more of the higher level. That means that you've proven traction, market fit. You've proven that you have traction. You're now no longer just a small company. You're in hardcore scale. You could essentially go global. You could go IPO. So now I'm closing that, and my hope is to close that by the end of summer.
Yeah, and it seems it's always, with my experience in the past, in my past life, that the Series A, anything below 5 million is really tricky, right? And then you get beyond that.
It's easier. It's easier the bigger you go.
Yeah.
It took me 5 months to close 8.4 million. 2.5 years to close 1.25 million.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've done a lot of government grant money and everything that's helped us along the way, keep the lights on. And then now it's, it's all about protecting your runway and preserving your burn. And that's the number one thing for us is, okay, so we are scaling, but we need to make sure that our burn is low because we need to protect the runway. So when you're in a tech company and you're scale up, you're consistently burning every month. No matter how much you bring in, you're going to burn. So how do we get the burn low, protect the runway so that we can increase our valuation? And that's the number one thing we're working on right now is we're going in lean and mean. And it's working. Like, I think we're probably scaling the highest we've ever scaled right now. Last month, we've had a record-breaking month in sales in May. I've never experienced that. And so it's a whole new ball game now.
Amazing.
Wow. What is your goal? What is your goal for?
Yeah, my goal would be to get back into the community. I love what I've created. I love what I do. But it's not my forever. I want to make a successful exit, pass the torch on, let somebody else run, and let somebody else take it and go. And I want to take my earnings and what I've done and possibly create some sort of an Indigenous tech founding fund. And then I want to just give back. I just want to, consult, teach people how to scale their companies. Just do that. Just live the life, and maybe not such a scale up a hardcore scale like this anymore, because it takes a lot out of you. You have to be go all the time.
And I think it's such a shift in being, growing up the way you did, traveling, being an introvert, being such a, because I find it so interesting to hear the very beginning of our conversation about where you came from, because everyone always sees you as this dynamic force where you have so much charisma and you have so much confidence. And let's talk a little bit about the pressure you have, because you went from, like, all the eyes are on you right now. All the eyes are on you. And it's interesting because when we did the TV show, Dean and I, there's one word, and there is no option to fail. There's no option to fail. There's too many people watching now. There's too many people that are inspired, and that we feel that we need to be able to elevate. And I can't even imagine that's just on our small little programming. So tell us a little bit about the pressure and maybe how you handle it and how you balance it, because there's a lot of eyes on you, and everybody wants you to win that we know of, right? 100% everybody wants you to win, but how do you handle that?
It is super scary. I'll be honest, probably it's a year and a half ago. I wouldn't say I hit rock bottom in the mental health area, but I certainly was struggling. And it was hard. There was a point where, my parents almost had to do an intervention of, you got to stop overworking yourself. You got to be careful, and I took it for granted a lot of times, because I just kind of thought, I'm just this person that, everybody likes, and it feels good to be liked, but it took a long time for me to realize that that's not what I'm doing this for. And I really had to kind of get back into my humble roots and say, wait a minute, that's not what you're doing this for. You're actually doing this because you're inspiring. And I have one motto in life, and that's every day I wake up, and that's all I say to myself. If I inspire one person, I'm inspiring an entire nation. So that's my number one motto every morning when I get out of bed. And so I was able to pull myself out of whatever I was in. I lost 150 pounds and got healthy. I walk, I work out, I meditate daily. And you know what? The number one thing I do is I shut down every day at 4:30. When I'm home working, I'm out of this office that I'm in my home office. I am out of my office every day by 4:30, downstairs, either going to walk my dogs with my partner or making my partner dinner while she's finishing up work or whatever. I travel a lot, I speak a lot, but those are the things that are exploding the business and bringing a lot of exposure to the business. But number one thing is I always make sure I'm taking care of myself first and foremost, because if my cup's not full, how am I going to fill up my employees' cups? And that's the one thing that I started realizing, that if I'm not taking care of myself, then how do I expect them to take care of themselves and the company? So now that's my number one focus, is doing that. The other thing is making sure that I'm not leaning full on me and taking full responsibility for everything. My team that I've created are fully aware. They're fully confident. They're competent to do this on their own without me. That's why I built the rockstar team I have. I just hired the COO who he founded startups.com. Startups.com is like a $300 million company, revenue. And he's coming to me now. He also built our biggest competitor in the States, who we now surpass. I post him, and now he works with us. The ex-head of Twitter marketing is our head of marketing now. These are people that I built because I remember I know that if I didn't have the right team, then I was just going to stick myself further and further in a hole and overwork myself. And so building a team is super important, and building a competent team is extremely important. And so really now, as far as dealing with all of the crazy hype, I don't know how it's gotten so big. Sometimes I'm quite surprised, like, where I can't even walk down the streets and people are like, "Hey, Bobbie, are you Bobbie? Can I have a picture?" And, and it's a little bit different. It's a different feeling being an introvert. I struggle with it. But all you could do is just, continue on and feel blessed that you're in that moment, because there's so many people like me that would wish they could have that moment, and so that's just remaining humble and continue forward.
No, I love that. It is about balance, and
Mhm.
I love your advice right now, because I'm always, Dean's just looking at me going, and the first thing that I do is look at my emails the last thing before bed. And then he goes, I don't even want to talk about work before we go to bed. So it's great to level that balance out. And now let's talk about your balance and your partner, because a little bit about your partner. Congratulations, you're getting married.
Yes.
And that's very exciting. Maybe tell us a little bit of, I know that you just traveled all through Europe, and what's it like to have a partner that supports you the way that you do, and how do you both get some balance together?
So we actually almost have that exact same thing. So when we come home from work, we don't talk business. We have what we call it our debrief. So we usually sit and then we're like, that debrief moment is only where we can actually talk business. So you might not know, but Marcy actually works for Virtual Gurus. That's how we met. And so, and so when we come home, that's what it is. It's like, hey, wait, you know what? Let's just debrief, and then that's it. And that really saves the relationship too, I think, because you cherish that you work together and you have that and you work, but at the same time, you want to cherish your personal life, and everything doesn't have to be about business. And is the number one thing that I've learned is that when you do work with your partner, is that like, you need to have a wait time from that. At the same time, you need to have that balance of supporting that. Like, so being able to take her with me to Portugal and Barcelona when I had to speak, that meant a lot to me. And actually this week on Tuesday, I'm taking her with me to Montreal to speak at a large LGBT in business conference that I'm the keynote speaker at. And so being able to take her with me to those things is important too, because then she could see me and work, and then we could still have some kind of work and play and go out and have some fun. But she can't come to the mall, and that's the part of it. That's what she signed up for, and she knows that, and I know that's what I signed up for. So really, it's. I mean, I'm blessed that I'm able to have her there with me, and so that's important. And we're doing really well with that, and we're excited to be getting married. So we're getting married in Cancun.
So I need to ask, how do you set the boundaries after your debrief? So if it's 7:00 and your debrief is over, and it's something that you're like, oh darn, but it's not that important, but it's kind of important. So do you just hang on till the next day, or how does that work?
Yeah, we stop. We both just, we know, I think it's whether it be just a quick little look like, hey, hey, you know what, let's put that on the agenda for tomorrow's debrief, or let's talk about that tomorrow. Because in the morning when we're getting ready for work, and then we do go downtown because we drive to work every day together, right? And usually when we're getting ready and eating a quick breakfast before we're running out the door, we talk a little bit of business. How's your day today? Do you have busy meetings? And yada yada yada. But we typically don't really talk anything like that, other than if we have a one-on-one at work that's really related to business, because she's the head of people and culture at the company, and me being the CEO. But the other thing is I don't report. She doesn't report to me. So she reports to the COO, so that really helps too. But as we get married, we're going to become more partners into this business, right? So that's a big thing. And I do think us learning that the debrief is where we can rant and rave, and then it stops there. And there's personal life. Like yesterday, we bought these scooters that have the seats. And yesterday we were like, let's go to the store on our scooters. So work is done. We get on our thing and we're zipping through downtown and and we're going to the store and we're giggling and laughing the whole way. And that is what you have to bring into you can't forget that stuff. Because the moment you forget that, then you don't want to build your relationship just on the business. And that's what we've learned. But
well, I'm ferociously taking notes right now.
Yes, exactly. This is more like a therapy. This is ending up to be more of a therapy session at the very end of it than anything. I love that.
Yeah.
What would your advice, so to our listeners right now, what would your advice to entrepreneurs be, being it that there's so many different, whether it's different facets of entrepreneurism, so whether it may be beauty line or whether it may be tech, which is huge, or what is your advice? And before you give your advice, what I would like to touch on is, how big is tech? How big is it? I know that we teach kids all over Canada. We teach entrepreneurism, we teach public speaking, we teach life skills, what have you. But how important is it to get involved in the tech world as a youth today?
I think that we need more youth and we need more people, especially Indigenous folks, to get into tech, because I think that tech is where we can fix everything. We can fix water in our communities. We can fix broadband in our communities. We can fix satellite dishes in our communities so that we can bring connectivity to our communities. All of this is on tech. We can bring jobs to the communities on tech. There's just so much that you could do with it that, a lot of people don't really realize that, in a sense. At the same time, though, I think you want to leverage tech to not take away from our ancestors and what they've created. Tech is innovative and you can use it to be innovative, but we don't want to take it away. So how can we leverage it to bring it in? And that's the number one thing that I think communities need to realize. And, I think that we're getting closer to that. And I think there's a lot more coming out. I know I'm probably one of the first Indigenous women CEOs here, and I love that. I mean, everybody's got to be first somewhere along the line. But at the time, I was so afraid being like, this is a big undertaking. And that's when my mom said to me, well, you can either leverage it as an undertaking of, do you want to take that on or not? Or you could leverage it as a, hey guys, I'm here. There's many of you here. Come out. Let's go. Right. And so that's kind of where I took it. And now I'm a part of the Indigenous Tech Circle. Now we're pitching on stages. Now we're speaking at tech conferences. Like, it's just amazing. And there's so many facets to tech. Tech is not just sitting there coding all day long. Tech is TV. Tech is this. Tech is, right? It's just, how do we leverage it? And that's the one thing that we need to get back into our communities a little bit more. One of the things that somebody had said to me when we were on a panel is, how far back is innovation? And I seriously think that innovation goes as far back as our ancestors that were making moccasins. That is innovation. Innovation isn't building, you know what I mean? And that's the one thing where we just got to keep teaching our people. And I think once we keep doing that, the sky's the limit. There's so much tech things. There's so many tech opportunities.
It's so inspiring. Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So last words, what is your advice for entrepreneurs? You had 170 no's before you got your first yes. And I know it's about resilience and it's about just a continuum of gaining your own confidence. Maybe if you can let our listeners, what's your last words of advice?
I think it would be just don't forget to live your story. Like, don't shy away from your story. So when I was raising the money, a lot of investors were telling me, you shouldn't tell people that you're creating this for marginalized and underserved communities. Just say you're building a platform. No. And then people say, you shouldn't tell people that you're an LGBT, that you're a queer woman, Indigenous woman in tech. I'm like, yes, I should. Don't be afraid to live that story, the story that is yours. You are your own story. You're the creator of your story. Live it, earn it, embrace it. And once you do that, everything just opens up.
Amazing. You are just such a phenomenal human. We are so glad to have met you. Dean's taken frivolous notes about your cutting off at 4:30. And if anybody wants to know interested in Virtual Guru services or becoming a contractor to provide your services, you can go to virtualgurus.com.
Yeah. So actually, anybody that's listening to the show can actually go to our VIP link and get $200 off of services, $200 off your first month. So it's www.thevirtualgurus.com/VIP. Very important to people.
Very nice. And you are the ultimate VIP. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. It's awesome. So good to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobbie Racette. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Lair. Please follow us, download this episode, and follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok.